Hey, everybody. I think some folks that have run a fantasy football team think maybe, just maybe, they might be able to do it in real life, like run a professional sports team. Well, today's guest is finding out that that's much more work than you might think. John Fahey is part of a management group that runs the Washington Wolfpack, which is a new team in the AF1 League, which is an arena football league, and his team is based here in the Pacific Northwest. Like any startup, he and his partners are wearing many hats to make the operation work. And you can say they are definitely paying their dues. John is also involved in something really cool that has nothing to do with football, but it's a program where he helps families in need find vacation opportunities. And we cover that today as well. I've known John since college, and he's always been full of great energy and great ideas. And I really have an appreciation for everything he does. And I think you'll enjoy our conversation today with John Fahey. John Fahey, thanks for joining me. Appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
We go back a little ways, don't we?
Dude, what, 30 years now, or maybe more, 35 years?
Yes. Yeah. So we go back to college, to WSU. I think you were the rush chair when I was going to Wazoo and going into the fraternity system. And
That's
I
right,
went, here's my memory of John
Okay.
Fahey. And I love this is, I met you in the summer and I'm like, okay, I want to go to the Beta House, because I had a couple friends there and done deal. So I didn't have to do the whole rush thing. Right. And you guys said, okay, come to Wazoo a week early for work week because you have to help work on the house. Right. And so I show up on time and I walk into the house and no one's there. There's like two guys around, no one's there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm just nervous, farm boy. And I'm like, I'm looking for John Fahey. And they're like, third floor, second door on the left, So I walk up to open the door and you're there in your shorts. You have an acoustic guitar.
Oh, God.
You don't remember this. And you are playing Ripple by the Grateful Dead on your guitar.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
It was like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You're this chill guy, just like, hey man, come on in.
Well, I like that visual. I'd like to say I've grown out of that phase, but I probably haven't. So
it was great. I'm
like, actually, it's like Ferris Bueller's Day Off right now, except I never get a day off anymore. So yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about that. But hey, you were always you were always making things happen back then. I mean, I remember you had a t-shirt company in college. You were always like the busiest guy I know. And certainly sounds like that still today. And we'll talk about some of those endeavors. But, what kind of linked us back up is, I mean, you being part of this football team and, wearing a lot of different hats. But I think a lot of people are familiar with arena football. But
Right.
just describe it to people and what you're involved with, because I think I think there's a lot of interesting pieces here.
Yeah, well, the Arena Football League, it's over 30 years old. But unfortunately, just like a lot of businesses, when they got to COVID, they had to shut down. They had no more, they weren't allowed to have any seasons for 2 years. And so it reorganized after COVID. And when they did that, they came looking for a franchise in the Pacific Northwest. We're up in kind of Seattle area, but really more north of Seattle in Everett, Washington is where our arena is. And so they approached this buyers group, these three people that are really civic-minded people and really got excited about the idea of bringing sports to Everett. Everett's it's a cool town. It's tucked right, on Puget Sound, as you know, but maybe some of your viewers don't know. Pinned between the mountains, and it's the main Boeing factory is there. So it's kind of a blue-collar town, but with sort of a renaissance going on. And these three owners really wanted to come and put something together in this fantastic arena up there, the Angels of the Wind Arena. So they sort of fell into it, ass backwards, if I can say that. But they had an incredible coach who was kind of part of the founding team, and they had an existing team. And so they came on board, and I think they really caught a tiger by the tail. They didn't exactly know what they were doing, but the league is, it's a cool thing. It's these are professional athletes. A lot of the players are former NFL players who still are hoping to get back in the NFL. We have people who made the draft, got cut during training camp, and they're still very much in the hunt to get in the NFL. We have some amazing college players that are these are people who are looking to move on and continue. And so when you come and watch these games, it's the real deal, but it's got a different twist to it because it's played. Ours is played in the ice arena, so a 50-yard arena, and you can imagine like the walls on a hockey arena. Those walls are the sidelines,
Right.
and so when the game is brought down to this kind of smaller section, it's got that kind of fast moving hockey vibe. These are high scoring games, and players are flying over the wall into the fans' laps, and it's fun. I mean, I'm a big NFL guy. I know you probably are too, and I love that. But this is a different kind of experience, and I wasn't that familiar with it until I got involved with the organization. But it's been fun.
Yeah, I mean, football is such a huge part of America,
Yeah.
and it feels like there's more room. I mean, the NFL is so huge, but there is an appetite for more football. And I know, you try to have that, I guess, a USFL or some of these other type of leagues,
Yeah.
but Arena has its own niche. And I mean, obviously, Kurt Warner is the most famous
Just
Arena
everyone, yeah.
player. I mean, he's right. I mean, that's what you think of. And
Yeah.
this is a guy that played 3 years in the AFL, came to the NFL. Now he's in the Hall of Fame. He went
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
3 Super Bowls.
Great story. Yeah.
So I mean, that clearly that's a great story. And so what is it like for those players? Like, what do they make? What are they? I mean, they're just trying to hang on and make a
Yeah.
name for themselves.
Well, I'll tell you, they don't make NFL salaries.
Yes. Yeah.
These guys are there for the love of the game. So they get paid by the game, and also a lot of these players, we have to recruit from all over the country and get them to come out to a small town they probably never heard of up in Washington State, and we have to put them up with a place to live and feed them, and they're here for about 4 months, 4 or 5 months, and that puts them through training camp, and they get recruited, and then it puts them through our regular season. So it's it's not a full-time job for most of these players. I mean, they are really there for the love of the game, I think, and for the dream, the American dream of maybe just I got some skills, I didn't quite make it, I'm on the cusp, and
Yeah.
we have some. It's kind of an interesting, because if it's a different thing, we have some kind of players that maybe will never make it, onto the NFL or some other league, but they're very specialized in their skills, and they're just out there, I think, just enjoying being on the field again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you're a minority owner in it. Just walk me through like the
Well, I should
different
qualify.
hats.
I'm working on that.
Okay. Okay.
I came in late to the game, so
Okay.
but if I'll be vesting into being an owner at some point, I hope.
Well, with all the things you do, it sounds like you should be. Just talk about the different hats that you wear to put this thing on.
Well, this is kind of interesting. Like I said, when the owners put this together, I don't really think they realized what was involved in putting together a professional sporting event. And we're not the NFL, as I said, but it's the same thing. We got to roll in and lay out a field. We got to put up these specialized field goal poles, and they're different from the NFL. And then you have to put together a sports team that can compete at a high level. So that's a whole different section. And then you got to go out and figure out, how to pay for it. And you have to get your community engagement and all your sponsorships and that kind of thing. And then the final thing is you have to get, butts in the seats. So it's, compared to other businesses, there are a lot of moving parts here. And I'll just tell you, nobody is getting involved in arena football to get rich. These people, these owners across the nation and their back offices, these are people who just really enjoy being involved in this kind of thing. Or in our case, I think really are hoping to build community around our area. And so it really feels like you are doing, 4, 5, 6 different jobs to put together one business. You're not just selling plumbing or that kind of thing. You're bringing all these things together, retail, merchandising, marketing, that kind of stuff. So I got involved because the franchise happened really quick last year in Everett for our first season. And so they finally got the franchise in and they started putting together everything. And then about maybe a month and a half before the season started, they realized they have this big event happening and nobody knows who they are. And just from some of the stuff I've done in the past, I have a lot of connections into like local media and that kind of stuff. So they approached me and asked me if I could help them get the word out. So that was my first job. And I expected it to just be a short little gig and kind of get them up and going. But and it was, but we're really have that startup vibe. If you've ever been around a startup where it ends up being all hands on deck, and you're putting in these get up at 7, go to bed at 9, and you haven't done anything but that during the season. So really, really cool culture. And I describe our group as kind of like the Bad News Bears a little bit. These are people who, they certainly have the passion and certainly have the interest and certainly have the business acumen, just didn't realize that this is a whole different kind of a thing. So we were all on a steep learning curve last year. And then, one of the things that happened last year is it was a brand new league and there was a little bit of league turmoil, just kind of a little growing pains trying to reorganize something and throw it together coming out of COVID. And so, I think there was a little bit last year when we were like, I'm not 100% sure that we're going to be able to make this go. But then, people started getting interested, not us, but every team in the league started showing what this was about. People hadn't been around it. And we caught a little, we caught a little tailwind there, which was nice. And we were finally reorganized the league, got some owner participation and really solidified. And that was at the end of the season last year and got ready to go for this season. I didn't expect to be involved, but that's when they approached me again and they asked me to come together and work on the corporate sponsorship and community outreach part of the team. But so that's what I do for the team. But I also, I'm down laying out the field with the owners, the owners up on, one of the owners is up on, on a rigged up, putting up the things while I'm down putting stickers on the field. And, we've probably got about, maybe not counting the coaching staff and the team, we've got about 20 back office people.
Wow.
Some of them are volunteering because they just are so interested in the team and have so much fun doing it and so interested in the community. And we're all learning. I think our sponsorship went really well this year. And none of this happens without incredible companies in the community helping us out, probably not, making a ton of money off being seen at our field, but really, demonstrating how much they want to build a community. It's been cool. We call our hashtag for our team is One Community. And it's really what we're all about, is trying to get people in. I think I will say this, right in our mission statement, one of the things that is really a thing. I'm sure you've been to a Seahawks game. That's, that's our local team here. I love the Seahawks too, but it's really gotten to a point where if you want to go to a game and you have a family of 4 people, it's $1,000 all in. That's or more.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because it makes it so a lot of families don't get to go and really see a high class professional sports event. And so, for us, we're just, we're working, we've put together this cool product, and you can get the same family of 4 in for under $100. And that's hot dogs and parking and gas. It's just an affordable way. And when these kids come and see these games, I don't think they know they're not at the Seahawks. It's really, they're into the action. They're right on the sidelines. And then the other part of this game, which I see, is, these players, they're all about the fans. They're happy to be out there. So, when people come early, they get to watch the whole thing. They get to interact with the team. At the end of the game, they're down, right on the wall. The teams are up, shaking hands, taking pictures. During the game, our quarterback will throw the ball to kids in the stands if it's a timeout or something, and the fans will throw them back. So it's it's football, but it is a real family entertainment kind of a thing at a good price. That's my pitch for and that's why I love it. I think it's been really fun to watch this thing come together. Yeah.
Well, there's definitely a place for it. I mean, that community engagement you're talking about, and you think about like minor league baseball or the development league for the NBA. I mean, there is a place for these
Yeah.
leagues and these teams, right? And there's so much talent out there. I want to think about what it takes to put on a game because
Yeah.
you covered a little bit of that, but also like. I mean, I'm sure you guys have to hire all the vendors like in the arena and
Yeah.
travel for these. And just these are the teams in the league right now. I think there's 8 teams. You have Billings, Montana, Oregon, a couple of teams from Kansas, Albany, New York, Corpus Christi, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, and the Washington Wolfpack here
Nice.
up in Everett. So you're covering travel for the whole team, the coaches, some
Yeah.
trainers. I mean, uh, there's a lot. There's a lot that goes
There,
into this.
there is, and we also, it's really important to the, I think the owners of these different teams. I know ours for sure, that they really take a strong interest in the players. These guys are uprooting. We have guys who jump in their car in Texas and make a road trip all the way up here just to try out. And
Mhm.
and so once they get here, they really have, we have to do make sure they have, good living spaces. We have to make sure that they're fed well. And then for some of these guys who've never been up here in the Pacific Northwest, we like to make sure they get out and about. So we have, a lot of companies that do cool experiences around town will sponsor them, and they get to go down and be on the big wheel down in the waterfront in Elliott Bay, or they get to do a Tomb Raider escape room down in Seattle, or they get to go over to Funco in Everett and build stuff. And it's all about, I mean, it's about quality football, but they're also really taking interest in the players. And our particular ownership, they even do seminars for our players on financial planning and life
Yeah.
after football. And, I think a lot of these guys know they won't make it, but into the NFL, but the ownership team wants to make sure they're kind of learning, things along the way. And, these are young kids, some of them, right out of high school or maybe right out of college,
Mhm.
and not necessarily always set up for
Sure.
success. So there's that. And then, as you mentioned, we got vans from the airport. We got to feed the other teams. We got to put up the other teams. We got to fly our team down, all around the country. And that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, it's no small feat setting up the field. We have to haul it in from a warehouse. We have to lay down plywood across hockey ice right now because our the silver tip hockey team up in Everett is doing in the playoffs. So we're laying plywood over ice and then a field over the top of that. And then we're setting the field down and all that kind of stuff. And that's, and then, just every other component, running the merch. We have a thing called the One Community Foundation, which it's a nonprofit organization that uses the Wolfpack's, platform, I guess you'd say, to spread the word. And within that, our team members, our athletes, are out once a week doing a thing called Wolfpack Buddies, where they're meeting with local kids at local schools and doing kind of a big brother, big sister mentorship kind of a thing. And then we do all kinds of other community projects, like the Wolfpack players help us with food drives. They helped us build an ADA compliant ramp for a family of a Boeing employee who was injured and needed a wheelchair to get up. So I could go on for an hour about
Yeah.
what's involved. I didn't think I'd have to go on for an hour because I thought you just throw together a field and have the team play out. But it's been in something, when you talk about paying your dues.
Yeah.
There's a group of 20 people in the back office, and there's a whole team and a whole coaching staff, and they are paying their dues. This is all hands on deck all the time. Yeah,
And it's like a startup. It's like you
it's
said. I
that's
mean, it's
exactly
that
what it's
startup
like.
mentality.
Yeah, yeah. So
And so with a startup, the key thing about a startup is for a lot of businesses, you're building a brand, right? At the
right,
same
yeah,
time as you're building business. So that's what you guys are doing is you're trying to build a brand, get corporate sponsorship to come in, even though the brand is still developing, right? So it's that
right,
that finite tipping point to
right,
get over the hump. And so I think that's why part of why that community engagement is so important, not only to give back to the community, but you don't build a brand overnight, right? And
right.
so it takes time and it takes all of that legwork. And how has the community received it? Because it's still pretty early.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been kind of blown away by, for me, they brought me on to do the corporate sponsorship part of it. And I was really surprised. I thought this was going to be kind of a tough, a tough load just because a brand new team and nobody knew who we were. But you really see, I mean, these companies, especially when you're in sort of a smaller market, I think, they want to make sure that people know that they're giving back to the communities they work in. And so it ended up being, I've really had great reception from people. People, willing, if you've hustled, I'm sure you have, throughout life, doing sales and trying to sell concepts and ideas. It can be Willy Loman and Death of a Salesman.
Uh-huh.
That's not my experience here. People take your calls; they're interested in what we're doing, and then probably more than I expected have jumped in, got involved, helped us with sponsorships to underwrite the thing, and knowing I think that this doesn't happen without a lot of community support. So there's that. The second component is getting the word out, that we're here and that we have these games. I think that's been the big challenge for us too, because you want to get the word out, and make sure people know, but you have to be, you can't spend $1,000 to get 50 customers or whatever. It's so you got to really figure that out, and it's and that's where we're on kind of I feel like we're on a really good upswing, because once you start getting people aware that you're there, then you get the word of mouth going. And we're a brand new team also. We're in a league with people who were there for 30 years. And so we're sort of we're sort of getting our legs under our feet on the football part of it too. We have a great team and we have some talented athletes, but we came out of the gate a little bit rough this year, and we finally have got a win under our belt, and we're still very much in playoff contention. And so that's part of the story too. It's a lot easier to get people out when you're winning, and so we had a little bit of a slow start, and we're kind of fighting some headwinds there. The teams come together. It's fun to watch them. You can see the chemistry starting to gel with these guys. And so as we move into the second half of our season, I'm like, okay, I think we can start to see some wins coming, and hopefully get into playoff contention. Well, we're in contention, but hopefully, we got to finish strong. We're in our sort of our make or break part of our season right now. And I'll tell you, when we get the wins, it does feel easier to sell tickets. So
yes, yeah, winning cures a lot of
winning
things.
Does, but I have to say, hats off to our fans, because they've seen us have some triumphs, they've seen us with some struggles, and they keep coming back. We have a real loyal group of people. We have a community council of people that are just
cool.
they're rabid fans. They're at the tailgate every day, and so that's kind of fun. Another thing that's been cool is I've always been kind of a build it hands-on guy. And then within that, especially in startups, there's a lot of sales involved with that, and maybe less marketing. So, but we've just been having a ton of fun with the marketing and pulling different things in to make the events, kind of special. You'll remember, because you're from the area here, Sir Mix-a-Lot and his posse.
Yes.
And so we had our game. We fell into this one backwards too. We had our game last week. And we had Kid Sensation, who was part of Mix-a-Lot's posse.
Yes, he was.
Great guy. And he came out with his crew. And the Angels of the Wind Arena, where we're at, is actually on Broadway in Everett. Right. And so they rebranded, and they did My Pack is on Broadway for the crowd, and he was out performing at halftime. And it was it's cool. It's fun. He's high-fiving with these young kids at the wall. And so, I have to say, when I talk about it being a startup and all hands on deck and all the trials, it's fun. There's nobody in our organization who's not, they'll roll their eyes and sigh and need a nap like the rest of us, but everyone is having fun. It's like we're running around, putting out a fire after fire after fire, and enjoying the whole thing. So
So on the promotional side of that, and that might be more other people, but do you look to, like minor league baseball? They tend to do a lot of events within the game, or a lot. They're always thinking about
Yeah.
fan entertainment outside of the game, and it sounds like you guys are doing. I mean, that's a big part of it, right? Like it's an ongoing entertainment um, event beyond the game itself.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of what maybe when I was talking about us getting our legs on our feet, you
Yeah.
really realize everything you do is for I mean, is for the fans because none of it happens if you don't, there's no point playing football to an empty stadium. And so, right down to every last detail, you're trying to create this fan experience at the right price. And we're just, we're in our second year and it's twisting levers, it's dialing in. It's what works here, what brings people there. We do halftime shows that are very interactive. We bring out our Wolfpack Howler truck, and we've got a big, I shouldn't say big, we've got a net in the back, and everyone in the stadium gets free Nerf footballs. And so you get your numbered football and you throw it in, and if they make it into the net, then you get $500. And it's really fun. You're just sitting there, and I'm usually out in the truck driving it,
Yeah.
and these footballs are just raining down from everywhere, and they're bouncing off. And when somebody wins, which happens, probably every other game, the crowd just goes nuts, and so it's that kind of stuff. In fact, when we had the Kid Sensation halftime show, so we had to cancel our ball toss, and we had to put it at the end of the game, and usually people are just shuffling out, but I think probably 90% of the crowd stayed around after the end of the game, after the football players, so that they could do the ball toss. So it's just
It's important. Yeah.
it's fun, and fun, that kind of thing. And then the other thing, this is what I think is most entertaining. If you go to the game, or actually I sent you some video, you can check it out later, but you'll just see it's the fan interaction. These kids are, they're coming, they're getting high fives and they're getting autographs, that kind of stuff. It's cool. I just, you can see the smiles on their face. We had one of our sponsors came in, and he had his kid in the press box, and they let his kid go out in the howler, and he was out picking up the balls, and he came back and he said, "Oh my God, this is the most fun I've ever had in my life." And I was like, "Well, that's high praise." I
Well,
had
look,
another kid tell me that too.
yeah, and look, and I mean, if you can keep it going long enough, then as people get older, then they bring their kids or whatever. I mean, that's what
That's the hope.
you
Yeah,
get tied
yeah,
to sports, and
yeah.
so then that's the uphill battle, is like surviving long enough to make that
We're going to
happen.
get one of our young athletes back into the NFL, and that's going to be a big coup for
Yeah.
us too.
That's what I was going to say. What would be the biggest thing to have an effect on your team, but also the league? It would be, I mean, it would be another AFL story, right? Of
Yeah,
that would get, I mean, that naturally gets a lot of headlines if you get one of your players, whether it's on the Seahawks or another team that you can lean into.
yeah. No, I think definitely. That's the thing. I think people, especially the fans, they really get engaged in the story of each individual athletes. We have locally, we have some athletes who were from the University of Washington, and some of them were on that national championship team that went up against Michigan. And and these are good players that people know about. They were following their career, and they know the whole history. So, I mean, people are really out rooting for these guys. These guys are leaving it all on the field. They train, 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week, and then play a game. I think they get one day off. And when they're not training, they're out in the community, doing stuff. So it's a real deal. These kids are hustling. They're serious, and they're giving up a lot to come over and give this a shot. So
Yeah,
we
they're
could get
living
one
the
of those
dream.
guys back in the NFL. I think we would just be on a glide path after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Has there been talk of the NFL being involved in the league at any point, as far as a feeder system, or there's not really I mean, it's college now, I guess.
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
really different. You have we have the Everett Aqua Sox. We have these smaller teams, and the other teams like that for Major League Baseball. These are farm teams. These are feeder teams. That's kind of their system. The NFL, not so much. They're out. They do the draft, and then they have the camps, and that's how people come through. And they don't really, that you put people on, reserve, and that kind of stuff. But they don't really, go out and do the feeder teams. It's just, if someone starts to really become, I mean, they're always watching us and keeping an eye on it, and seeing, because you can, as like the Kurt Warner story, you can bring someone on board who's got some real talent and didn't make it for whatever reason. You can bring them on at a pretty good price. And once you get them on at a pretty good price, they can be a huge asset to your team. So the NFL is always watching our league and looking for some opportunities, which makes it exciting.
Yeah. Well, I think, this is why I wanted to talk to you, because, you hear about, like, I think a lot of us think about being part of a professional sports team, on the management or ownership side. We all do fantasy football and we all
Yeah.
think we know how to run everything. And then you hear about how much work there is behind it. It doesn't just happen. I think a lot of people feel like they'd love to be part of an ownership team, and
Yeah.
I mean, it seems, so sexy and so cool. And whether it's part of ownership or management, we all do fantasy football. We think we know how to run teams and whatnot, but to hear the story behind how much work it is, your group certainly is doing it for the love of the game and
Yeah.
love of the community. And I'm sure it's rewarding in its own way.
No, I absolutely. I think that's true. It's funny. You said that, I think everybody wants to be part of management teams and thinks that they could run a sports franchise. That I think that you're right. Boy, there was some hubris there. You think if you're a big sports fan that you automatically know what's going on. And I got to say, hats off to these NFL teams and these, any of these, professional sports teams, that are running high dollar players, high volume crowd. It is incredible what they have put together. And I'll tell you this, when you see a show, or when you see a game, I should say, and I didn't realize this, you show up and you just watch this whole thing go, and you have no idea what kind of scrambling is going on behind the scenes, how many people are racing around, getting things put together. And it's funny. I've heard that's true of almost all of these, even high end professional sports events, that it's hauling stuff in, hauling stuff out. The staff at the arena, the things that they do, what you have a football game, and then 2 days later you have a monster truck rally, and then you have ice capades, right? And then you have the Silver Tips hockey team, and it is just this constant controlled chaos, which you don't really get a sense of when you're sitting in the stands just watching people play. So I've been blown away by, as I've put together so many businesses, started so many different businesses in a lot of different industries. And this one, your podcast is called Paying Your Dues. I think I've paid my dues in other industries.
Yeah.
And I think that there's your hubris. I thought, okay, here's just another business that I can step into with these guys, and the people that I'm working with. I know them. They're hardworking people. They're smart people. They run great businesses themselves. We got this. And boy, we didn't have it from the get-go. I'll tell you that. It was it was a little bit of a process and a learning curve. We are still learning. Every day is just, tweaking the dials, and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. That
It's startup life. I mean, you said it.
Life,
It's startup life. And
and I'm no spring chicken, Greg.
you've got
I don't know what I'm doing here.
You've got plenty of runway, my friend.
Yeah, well, that's nice of you to say.
Well,
yeah.
I do want to ask you about your story, because I know you were in finance for a long time, and you left that to really pursue something that touched your heart, which is the Vacation Angel Network. And I saw this a little while ago. I saw you doing it, and I thought it was so cool. I'd just love for you to explain what that is and how that came up, because I really think it's something people should know about.
Yeah, well, it's I don't know if you remember this. I had back when we were in college, I had a pretty big business in college over there in Pullman, where we had a retail clothing store, and we were printing shirts and that kind of stuff. And you might recall, the business we were in, the whole building burned down.
Oh, that's right.
Right. And so, and we, at the time we were selling Washington State University licensed clothing. We were the number one seller of that, me and some partners. And we had this whole store full of clothing that we had on net 90 terms, and it burned down. We were insured, but for whatever reason, it took almost over a year to get the insurance back from them. And so I was 20, years old, and we were something like $200,000 in debt to our suppliers, with no business left. So, early on, I kind of had a little bit of, literal trial by fire there. And we were able to come back from that, pay everybody off. And then when we got our insurance claim, I was like, okay, this is great. So I was always going to own my own business, or at least that was my hope. And then, as in all things, I kind of stumbled backwards into this finance job. And I did that for 22 years. It was a great job. I really liked it. But the whole time I was putting together other businesses on the side. And one of them, I just got early on to the sort of the vacation rental space. So I had some vacation rentals of my own all around the Pacific Northwest here. And we started, because these rentals sit empty a lot, we started, somebody had come to me and their family had a bit of a tragedy. They had a young kid who had gotten cancer, and he was going through his treatment, and he had survived. And it was a really neat family, neat story, neat kid. But, one of the things is that when you are a family and your kid gets really sick, it doesn't matter how insured you are or anything. It just, you're done. Financially, it takes you to the cleaners. And so, a friend of a friend, I said, if they want, we have these vacation rental homes over there. Do you want to have the family go over and take a vacation after their son had finished his treatment? And they said, yeah. And they headed out and they did it. And they just had the best time. And, I had been in finance for so long, which is a great job, but it's not really the most fulfilling job.
Yeah, it's a
You work, you
corporate
do your
job.
month, you get your paycheck, they clean
Yeah.
the slate, and you do it again. And this was like a really fulfilling kind of a thing. And so they had mentioned to some other kids that were in treatment with their son, some other families. And so we started doing this. And then that got the attention of the local news here in the Seattle market. They started doing kind of these pieces on this, free vacations. And suddenly I just had a ton of phone calls from other people who own vacation rentals that were offering to donate their homes to these families. And I said, yeah, well, we'll do that. And pretty soon I was working on that as much as I was working on my real job. So, and I really liked it. And so I just decided it's time to make a switch. So I opened up this thing called the Vacation Angel Network. And it's a group of vacation rental homeowners. And that's what they do. They'll offer up their homes just for a free vacation, and they'll put in some events and stuff, and we'll, pay for the travel to get these kids. We're not flying them anywhere because a lot of times these kids need to be close to the hospital.
Yeah.
They're done with treatment, but they need their check-ins. But we'll just, kind of do some local things. And it's gotten to the point where it's a pretty big undertaking, and we're doing some pretty cool stuff, meeting some incredible families and all that kind of thing, and really, really feel good stuff. So that's how that came to be. And that became my full-time gig. I've been doing that for about 5 or 6 years now. And in fact, it's kind of a neat little tie-in because we've had some of our Vacation Angel Network kids. We've had kids one kid in particular really was into football, and he had leukemia and went through his whole treatments, and he was they ring the bell when they're done with treatment. So you have to ring the bell. And then we brought him out to Mukilteo, Everett area, and we put him up for a weekend. And then he got to come down and go out on the field in our hauler van and meet all the fans. And it's just, this kid, his smile was just lighting up the arena. And when they announced that he was our fan of the week and that he had beat cancer, the arena just went crazy. And, so just really feel good stuff.
That's great.
I'm not throwing shade at anyone who works in finance, because I did it for 21 years, but it's kind of nice to be in a little bit more of a fulfilling business, sector.
Sure.
And I'll say that was a big business to put together, and I've really enjoyed that too. But nothing compared to a sports franchise.
Well, the business model, just to understand that on the Angel Network, is if I own a vacation house,
uh,
I give it up for that use, without getting paid, and then I'm part of the network that people like I, as a consumer, Greg, I can find a vacation house on that network with lower fees. Is that basically how it
Yeah, yeah,
works?
yeah. That's the. So once people donate to our house, they become part of our network. So the network is
Yes.
all these different homeowners. It was
Yes.
just when I set this up, I had already, I was trying to transition into doing that full time, and one of the things we were just bumping up against, I think this is a complaint all around America, is you go on these platforms and it's so expensive because of all those fees you have to pay, the
Right.
booking fees. And that was really frustrating for us in the business of people who own these homes, because we don't get that money. And it's really, you're trying to provide value for vacation rental. You want people to be there at the right price. And so when there's 20 and 30% fees on top of that, it really hits your value. And it was frustrating. You could tell that we were losing rent because people just were paying too much. So the network, once, it was kind of a neat way for us to sort of circumvent that. So we have everyone on the network, they get to be listed on our platform, the Vacation Angel Network platform. And that is just renting direct. We kind of operate like a co-op, and it lets us, not charge those 30% fees. And then, people get an extra $500,000. They get to go
Yeah.
golfing or skiing or whatever, or rent a boat. And suddenly we get the big 5-star reviews most of the time.
That's that's very creative, and
Well, it was cool.
I
It
love
was
it.
kind of cool. And also, it's it I have to say this though. I don't think people that are doing the Vacation Rental Network, like, I don't think that the customers that are donating their houses, I don't think they're doing it for that reason.
Yeah. Talk
People
about
most.
what they feel. What's the reaction they have when somebody uses a house, someone in need
I
gets
mean,
an
I just think
opportunity.
you can't help but have a real, a real kind of a positive experience from that, and feel like you're giving back. And there is something kind of sad about these houses that can sit empty. Maybe somebody should be out there enjoying them. So when you can use that, and it's gone. We started with kids who were usually kind of coming out of children's hospital or something like that, pretty sick. But it's grown to, we had some refugees from Ukraine that came over here with nothing, and we were able to come and showcase, get them into places and that kind of stuff. And the people who do this, they also, they're not required to, but generally they'll even donate money for meals and gas and that kind of stuff, because you could give someone a free house on the other side of the state, and a lot of them are so financially wiped out from going through these treatments that they wouldn't go because they can't afford the
Mhm.
gas to do it. So and then same thing, I guess, in that one, kind of like the sports franchise. We've had a lot of other businesses that have pitched in to provide restaurants and experiences and kind of fun. So,
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
I can't think of a bad experience that's come out of any of this.
Yeah.
The people who do it and donate their homes are just so grateful to be able to do that and be in a position to do that. And the people who get to go on it are always very grateful. And one of the neat things, this is kind of a weird component of it, is when a family has a kid who gets sick and they have more than a few kids, it just inevitably, a lot of the attention goes to the sick kid. And it's really tough on the other young siblings too, because not that they get put on the wayside, but there's just so much this life and death stuff. And so it's really kind of neat for this whole family to kind of just put all that behind them, come together, and just have kind of fun things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you more than anyone are interacting with the families probably the most. So what has that been like for you personally? I mean, to see these families up close, and not only help them, but I mean, you see some of the real struggle that they're going through.
Yeah, I just, it's, some of it'll break your heart.
Mhm.
I think I almost hate to talk about this because it's not sad, but some of these families that have some serious illnesses, the outcome isn't always what
Right.
you would hope it be. Some just kids die, but
Yeah.
we've had some mothers that have had cancer, and we've had some people pass away. So that part, is really tough. And we started doing these things called bereavement trips. So after a family's gone through and had this kind of a loss and they have a little time, we'll let them come out and do bereavement trips. And that's not really feel good, I guess,
Yeah. But it's
you,
important. It's
but it's
important.
important, and it's, in the moment is kind of their sadness, but you get to see these people, do some healing. And I think that's, you want it to be all sunshine and happiness and rainbows and all that. But, this is serious stuff. And so I guess it's kind of nice to see some closure, see some happiness, see the kids, if there's other kids that, siblings that are there, have fun. And, I think that was tough when I first started doing it. That was a little bit tough to,
Yeah, I
to do
bet.
that. But now I think some of that is kind of the real value of it. And, and I can't, yeah, I don't know what to say other than I'm grateful to have the opportunity to do that. I'm so grateful for the other members of the Vacation Angel Network that make that happen.
Yeah.
And I say this, you know, the people that have these vacation rental homes, a lot of these people, this is what they do for a living. And it's a tough business, like every other business. There's so much to keep these houses going and to create experiences, and they're constantly battling taxes, maintenance, all this kind of
Yes.
stuff. So these people are, you sometimes think of like, oh, there's some guy who's got 5 houses and he's renting, he's probably wealthy. These people, they've invested a lot into these things, they work really hard. And so it's when they sometimes give up the opportunity to rent to let kids come, or when they provide food or stuff, they're really digging deep, and they are doing it because they want to give back. And I think that's
Yeah.
kind of neat. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I do, and I think it's the platform allows people a way to give back. I think
Yeah.
a lot of us want to do something, and we find different ways to do it, but sometimes it takes a creative platform to realize I have a resource
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
could help somebody else, and
Yeah.
then the reward is by giving that up, right? And seeing somebody use that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
That's
I love it. It's that's exactly right. And I try and think of other resources that go underutilized for the same thing. And it seems like there's a ton to do it. There's always this. I think I especially felt this during the past few years. That there's kind of a right now the world can seem a little cynical. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
sure.
There's just and that's kind of what you would see, especially if you're watching the news at all. You just have this cynical thing, but that's not my experience at all in the real world. It's just what I see is everybody is really wants to look out for everyone else, and people really are trying to give back, and they want to do the good things, and so it's heartwarming.
Yeah.
Same thing coming back to this football franchise. I've really it's really interesting to be involved in this business. I mean, I don't know. I mean, these owners want to have a successful business but I can tell you, none of these people got into this to make a dime. They got into it because they want to do it. And every meeting we have is not about, how can we maximize this or how can we bump up ticket sales. Everything they do is about how can we create this cool experience for families and kids. And they've been the franchise, the owners have been so generous to my Vacation Angel Network too. They just, anytime we want kids to come out, these kids get the red carpet treatment. They get the hugs and the interaction from the sports team. So it is a different world when you're out in it and seeing
Yeah.
people really working hard to take care of each other in community. It's a different world than you would maybe catch the flavor of on TV, where everyone's arguing and yelling at each other and this person sucks and that, so that's cool. That makes me
Yeah.
feel,
That's great perspective.
yeah, something every day that I wake up and makes me a little bit happy about. So
So let's take advantage of the chance we have here, because you have a game or some games coming up. I know there's one at this taping. You have something in early May for people still to get out and
we
see
do,
this
yeah.
team
This is,
locally.
and I know you have a national audience here, but so of course, I'm speaking to my Pacific Northwest peeps here. But we have our final home game. The season continues, but our final home game is May 4th, and that's at the Angels of the Wind Arena up in Everett, Washington. And it's interesting because arena football is so unique. We do draw fans from, the area
Hmm.
south of Seattle, 50 miles. Renton is. We've had people from Tacoma, and then all the way up near the Canadian border in Bellingham, we have people. They come down to see this event. So this is kind of broad reach to come to Everett to the Angels of the Wind Arena. And May 4th, we are playing against the Oregon Lightning, which is, in the short time that we've been here, probably because of their proximity, they've been our fun trash talking rivals.
Yes.
And
Good.
we beat them in our first outing narrowly. We came back from we scored 35 unanswered points from a 27-point deficit to beat them. And they didn't take too kindly to that. We're actually heading down this weekend to Oregon to play them for the grudge match. And then by a quirk of scheduling, we spin right around for our last home game and play them here. And they're pulling out all the stops to make sure we get our home send off with a bang. So it's going to be a really fun event. And since you're giving me the platform, I'm just going to say, if you have a family, if you have kids, get out to the arena and let them see this event, because it is fun. And, win, lose, or draw, when you see these kids just racing around. There's something cool about our sport is when the footballs go into the over the rails and into the fans, the kids get to keep the footballs. And that includes when we're kicking extra points or field goals, they put it into the stands. And almost as fun as watching the football is watching this horde of kids descend upon the end zone seating. And they stand there and the ball comes up and comes through. And it is just a scrum for these kids. And
people love free stuff. People
they love free stuff.
A foul ball. So
you name
that's
it.
taken off the foul ball thing. I mean, that's great.
Yeah. And they get
People
to keep
love
these
that.
beautiful footballs, and then they'll come down and we'll have, and it happens, 10, 12 times a game. These kids will come down at the end of the game and they're getting their football signed by all the people. It feels like, listen, I love the NFL. I love professional sports, and I'm as hooked as the next guy. But this just really feels like the way things used to be, before it got so, high dollar, high commercial. These are, it's real, real crowd interaction, real, back and forth and fun. So yeah, May 4th out in Everett at the Angels of the Wind Arena against the Oregon Lightning. It's 4:00 at night on a Sunday. It's perfect time to come, and we'd love to just pack the stands. And,
well, we'll get the word out on it, and then we'll put the links in. But what's the website for the team for people to check out?
So yeah, you can just go to Washington Wolfpack and check us out. But the easiest thing to do is just go right to Ticketmaster. Look up Washington Wolfpack; it'll take you right there, and you can pick your seats. And there isn't because it's such a small arena. There isn't a bad seat in the house. There really isn't. Yeah, I mean, everywhere you're at, you'd be amazed at how close you are to the action, and how much action there is. These we have, our scores can be 72 to 60. It is back and forth. When you think you're out of the game, you're not. When you think you've got the game a lock, you don't. It is really high paced, fast action football. So
high entertainment. And then what if people want to find out more about the Vacation Angel Network? Where would they go?
Oh, just hit us up at vacationangelnetwork.com. I'm always soliciting vacation rental homeowners. If you guys want to get involved, we want to build the network. We're really in the Pacific Northwest right now. We've got a few other states, and I'd love to take this thing coast to coast and create opportunities to do this.
It would seem like clearly there'd be a need for it. So
so vacationangelnetwork.com, you can hit me up there, or if you want to save a little money on your own vacation rental and you want to get past those platforms, you can hit us up there too, and we'll save you some money.
That's cool.
You've turned this into an infomercial, Greg. This is supposed to be about paying your dues.
You are paying. You've always been paying your dues, John.
Please don't make me talk about our businesses more.
Yeah. Stop twisting my arm.
Yeah.
Well, look, hey, John, I've known you a long time, and you've always been one of the good guys. You really have. Yeah. You have, and clearly you're doing that now in the things you touch, and I appreciate that about you. So I love talking about these things. I love getting the word out on them. So I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Well, hey, back at you, and thanks so much for helping us get the word out. It's, we're a new organization, and stuff like this is pennies from heaven for us. So I very much
All
appreciate
right.
it.
All right. Thanks for being here,
Okay.
John.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks.